Hello everybody. Today it's Saturday, April 23rd and the goal is to fly to the Aero Expo in Friedrichshafen. As in the previous flight to Kassel, I asked Joop Santiago to join me to fly to Friedrichshafen. He is a retired KLM captain and I want to pick his brain and learn how to fly through Germany. The reason why we fly to Friedrichshafen is because Papa Hotel Mike November X-Ray will be displayed in the booth of UL Power. Because there are fixed slots where you can arrive with your plane and enter the expo area, we are kind of on a schedule, which can be a problem if you're not able to fly IFR and you're depending on the weather. I still have some issues with the left tendency of my RV7. I'm still too cautious on the right rudder. Every takeoff brings a smile to my face when I feel the climb rate. We checked the weather beforehand and in the Netherlands it was great and actually it looked good in Friedrichshafen. So in the end of the day it would get worse, but we would be there way before that. So much for theory. In practice it turned out to be quite different. Planned a track that was pretty straight from Teugen to Friedrichshafen, but still I went around several big airports. Which is one of the reasons that I asked Joop to join me, because there are big airports such as Düsseldorf, Frankfurt, Köln and Stuttgart. So here in the Netherlands it starts with nice weather. In about 15 minutes we reach the German border. That's not because my plane is blazingly fast, but we just live close to the border. We stayed at 3,500 feet, just beneath the clouds, and when weather permitted we went to 5,500 feet, because actually there the headwind was much lower, so we will use less fuel. Also the CTRs around some of the big airports have Class C airspace from 4,000 or 5,000 feet up, so we need to stay beneath those, or we have to ask permission to cross the CTRs, but we decided to circumvent it because it was easy to do. Finally we could climb to 5,500 feet, which was more efficient due to less headwind, and it provides a really nice view over the clouds. The total distance to Friedrichshafen takes about 2.5 hours. But after 2 hours the clouds became thicker, there were less spots to see the ground, and we also heard from Lange information that the weather in Friedrichshafen was worsening. The airport at Friedrichshafen is at almost 1,400 feet. Now that's not very high, but in the Netherlands there is no point higher than 1,000 feet, hence the name Netherlands. So for me it's the first time that I fly to a location where the terrain is actually higher than 100 feet. Considering the weather, we decided not to fly all the way to Friedrichshafen above the clouds and then see if we can get down there, but to take a prudent choice and take one of the spots about half an hour before Friedrichshafen to descend beneath the cloud base and see how it looks down there. With my RV7 I cannot go through the cloud layer. First of all, I don't have any IFR equipment on board, and also I'm not known of any traffic beneath the clouds. You could ask Langen information to do that and see if there is traffic nearby, but still it's dangerous. And also you don't know the terrain. Well, we know it from the charts, but it's still dangerous. Also I don't have a heated pitot tube, so you could pick up ice or lose your airspeed altogether. We spotted a big hole between the clouds and decided to descend through that one to see if we can continue flying beneath the clouds and make it to Friedrichshafen that way. I'm really glad that I have a tablet with easy VFR on it. This way you can see on the profile view what the terrain is doing. And we could see that the terrain was going up and the cloud base was about the same. So in the end we would probably run out of clearance. Also the Lange information support is really great. They proactively contacted us and said that there were other planes that were also going to Friedrichshafen that were not able to land and had to divert to another airport, which he also couldn't land due to weather. So it's in this situation that I'm really glad that I asked Joop to join me. Making decisions if we continue or turn back are always hard, and probably as an inexperienced pilot I would just try to continue because you think that you can probably do it, but there you can see that experience is really important. So Joop looked at the terrain and the weather, and although I saw an airfield really close that we might divert to, Joop decided that it's not a good thing to continue and turn back, because there is no way that we could reach Friedrichshafen this way, and we're not going to climb above the clouds to see if we have the luck that we can go down there in Friedrichshafen. So we decided to find a field nearby where we could actually also fuel. We had enough fuel, we had probably another 2 hours, but I thought, well, when we have to divert to an alternate, we can just fuel up anyway. There were several small airfields nearby, but they all require prior permission, and Lange Information was so nice to call the airfield to see if they were open and they had service. To make it more interesting, the airfield that we are going to divert to is called Grabenstetten, and that is a grass airfield, and so it's also the first time that I'm going to land on grass, which I never did with this plane, so that's going to make it more interesting. I think that the most important thing I learned from this flight is not so much the flying itself, but more of the decision making. If Joop was not in the right seat, I would have probably just continued. Not because I think I'm a great pilot, but just, yeah, you think you're gonna make it, right? It's not hubris, but it's more like overconfidence, and that happens a lot. And you sometimes see that in other YouTube videos where people crash their plane due to bad weather. And when you see that, you think, that's not going to happen to me. But actually, when you're just in there, you think, I think I can make this. It's not a big deal. So on the maps it said that Grabenstetten has both F-gas and MOGAS, and they did, but they're not very useful because they're not allowed to sell it. So they can only use it for their own use, and there is apparently some German regulation where they are not allowed to sell it as a commercial party. So that was disappointing. However, the people of the local flight club were really nice, and they helped us with calling another field which was really close, about 10 minutes flying, and it also had a PPR, so a prior permission required, and that field actually did have MOGAS, and apparently all MOGASs, or most fields which have MOGAS in Germany, are Euro 98, so that's exactly the octane level that I need, so that's good. So the approach to Grabenstetten was really nice. The airfield is laying in the hills, which is a really beautiful sight. However, what wasn't nice was the runway itself. It is grass, and it's the first time I landed on grass with the RV7, and I'm not sure that it should make that much noise. To me it felt like a very rough grass airstrip. Maybe all grass airstrips are like this inside, I'm not sure. I'll have to figure it out. I know there are really nice grass airstrips in the Netherlands which are close, so I will do that as a reference next time. But this one it felt very rough. The runway is going slightly downhill from this side at least, which you don't really notice while landing, but if you taxi later to get up there again, you feel that you need a lot of power to climb that grass runway. I think the rattling sound that I hear while rolling out over the rough runway is probably the baggage compartment wall in the back. Maybe I should somehow seal it or use, I don't know, a rubber insulation layer around it, because I think that's what's making the most noise of everything. So we taxied to the parking spot, and after drinking some coffee, and when the people from the flight club helped us call the other field, we departed to fly to Leichingen Airport, which is also very small. It actually has a very narrow runway. It's only 8 meters, so about 25 feet, which is about the span of the RV7. So that was also interesting, because I've never seen a runway that narrow. Unfortunately, I forgot to turn on the camera, so I don't have any video from us flying from Grabenstetten to Leichingen, but it was only a 10-minute flight anyway. Okay, so this concluded the first leg for flying from Teuge to Friedrichshafen. Continuing flying my pie in the sky.